Hello, welcome back to Recovery Demystified. I'm your host, Early. I'm so excited to have y'all listening today. Thank you for joining me. Recovery Demystified is recovery for the rest of us. If you haven't quite found your place in addiction recovery, if you felt left behind, I'm coming back for you. And that includes people like my friend Kailey, who I interviewed today. I think there's this concept that comes up a lot with folks who are struggling with their use, where they need to find out, like, am I an alcoholic, right? Like, am I addicted enough to address these issues? And I personally don't think that is the right question to be asking. It's kind of a pointless endeavor to decide this like black and white concept, like, am I an addict? Am I an alcoholic? Like, is this bad enough to address? I think if we're asking ourselves those questions in the first place, that it's something that would be good to explore. But I think that a more important, like a more relevant, appropriate question to ask ourselves would be, would my life be better if I made a change? Is alcohol, is drugs, is vaping having a negative effect on my life? In what ways is it affecting me negatively? If I changed something, could my life be better? I just think it's like a psychological waste of time to wonder, am I an alcoholic? And I honestly think we could just throw the word alcoholic out the window and hope it lands in the dumpster. Because I don't think wondering about that kind of stuff is helping us. And I think it's really important to hear the stories of people who experienced like gray area drinking, where, you know, they're still fully functioning. Like Kailey gets her college degree throughout her drinking. Like, you don't have to be... Your entire life doesn't have to have completely fallen apart before you look inside of yourself and ask yourself, could something change and could I feel better? And you also don't have to like immediately go from life-threatening alcoholism to complete abstinence the next day to have an important recovery story, right? Like, Kailey went through struggles and she did experience like blackouts and a panic attack and like some obvious negative repercussions. But all the while, you know, she's like getting her counseling degree and like looking inside of herself and improving her life. And even still now, she's like in a questioning phase of drinking on occasion and wondering like, is this still adding or subtracting from my life? And I think it's important to show that there's like ups and downs, that recovery is not linear, that the path is not always straight and narrow. Like, we have times of abstinence, we have times of moderation, we have times of binge drinking, and all of that stuff is okay. And what is important is that we're surviving, we're treating ourselves gently. We're asking ourselves, what would someone who loves themselves do? And yeah, just like working towards the next best step, you know, little baby steps, harm reduction, taking care of ourselves, and just being inquisitive, asking ourselves, could my life be better if I made a change? And I suppose without further ado, here is my interview with Kailey. Hello, Kailey. How are you doing today?
Hi, Early. I'm great. Excited to be here.
Yay. Would you start by introducing yourself to the listeners? Just let them know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Kailey. I am the one that does the social media for Recovery Demystified. So if you ever get a message, it's either me or forwarded from Early. And I'm also a student here at the university for counseling, and I work with Early, so that's how I know them.
Yes, I also forgot. Let the listeners know your pronouns as well.
Okay, she, her.
Thank you. And yes, me and Kailey work together. I'm so excited to have you here today. So we're here to talk about addiction and recovery. So I guess if you would start letting the listeners know what it was like to be a kid, what your first encounters with substances or alcohol was, and sort of how things ramped up when it got bad and how you decided to make a change and get into recovery.
Okay. So honestly, my parents rarely, if any, drank. So I can't even remember like super early exposures at all. My dad has been sober since a little bit before I was born, I think. He was basically like, he drank too much, like more binge-ish, which I will get into. I related to a lot later on in my journey. But whenever he figured out that I was going to be born, then he kind of saw that it was an issue and he didn't want to like continue that into fatherhood. So he stopped drinking. And so I've never seen him drink or really even struggle with it. I don't think he like went to meetings or anything. Like I wouldn't know I don't think he would actually say that like he had an addiction. Just more that it wasn't a part of his life that he wanted to continue. And then my mom, she's always been able to like moderate really well. Like she had a boyfriend, I think, once that like drank a little more, but so she like whatever got into that with him some, but it was like very casual, like not much at all.
Would you describe her as like a normal drinker?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like able to go to the bar and have 2 beers or whatever.
What's that like?
Right?
Yeah. So were your parents, you mentioned your mom had a boyfriend, or your parents divorced?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got divorced when I was in vitro. So, yeah.
So what was it like being a kid?
So I moved to Arkansas when I was 7. So before then, I kind of had like a split, like dad's house, mom's house. And then at 7, I moved to Arkansas, and then that became a lot more split. I mean, being a kid was, you know, there's all the kid things like school and friends and stuff. But also a lot of like kind of relational issues with mom growing up. Like I was the oldest, so I think I was very like mentally involved and stressed out by everything going on.
What do you mean? Would you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So like her just dating or marrying several people. No shame, Mom, if you're listening to this. But it was just like there was never like a kind of consistent, like every few years things changed really dramatically. And as the oldest, I think that I, you know, picked up where the stress was affecting the family. Like made it my responsibility to cook or clean, to like kind of maintain that order in the house.
At what age did you start to feel like that you were emotionally involved like that and had to pick up responsibilities?
Probably like 11, roughly.
Yeah.
So probably 11 until, 16, I started getting out of the house more. It got a little easier.
Yeah. I also just want to mention for a second with when it comes to parents that we don't, we reserve the blame feeling, because I think parents are just trying to do the best that they can. And even if it does have kind of like a stressful or difficult effect on us, that me asking about people's childhoods is never like to try to get at the parents, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely understand. I hold no blame towards her at this point.
Yeah. So what was, you said that your dad was sober, but that your mom was a normal drinker. What was your first sort of like encounter with substances in childhood?
The first time I think I probably noticed was, I mean, I'm sure it was like somewhat around throughout my life. But like family functions, like, you know, we didn't have alcohol at them, like Christmases and stuff. Like there was no drinks. So I think the first I can remember is like when she was dating this one person and my mom, and she went out and gotten a few drinks and like was hungover. And I had never like seen that in her or with anyone really. So that's my first like major memory.
How old were you when that happened?
Probably 13, 14, probably 14.
And do you remember what you thought at that time?
I think I was worried. But that was about it. I was kind of like unsure of the relationship. So I think that all got like jumbled together of she's dating somebody and she's, you know, hungover or out or whatnot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you ask about it at the time or just keep your worries to yourself?
I just kept my worries to myself.
Yeah. So you're 13 at that time. How was being a teenager?
Teenagehood. It was, I think that I like, well, finally when I started getting freedom away from that, like, kind of mom-ish role, I think that I maybe overindulged in, like, social life. So, like, whoever I was dating, getting wrapped up in that more than maybe I would now. And I don't know. Teenagehood is very kind of blurry. But, yeah, just, like, really wrapped up in who I was dating, I guess, is the main thing. I don't remember, like, having a lot of, like, thoughts or, like, I certainly wasn't developing my identity at the time. You know, like, I don't know. I don't want to say healthy, but, like, in a way that I would like to develop my identity now. I was not doing that.
Yeah. Did you get into any teenage experimentation of drugs and alcohol or anything?
So I didn't start drinking until I was 17. And that was just like a few times at friend's house. I wasn't like not cool, but I wasn't like getting invited to like parties and stuff. So it would be like small things with friends. Happened a few times before college. And those were pretty just like excessive drinking. It was like, I just had no clue how you were supposed to drink. Like I feel like I was just like plopped down into this. And I mean, parentally, you know, there's that side of like, some people are shown like this excess of how much their parents are drinking. Mine was like this minimal degree, so much so that like I couldn't relate to that, I guess. Like I don't know. It was just like a lot. I'm stuttering a little. But it was like, it was in excess, essentially. Like very quickly, it was just like binge drinking habits. Just like that was my baseline.
Did your parents ever talk to you about alcohol at all when you were a kid? Especially since your dad had quit before you were born, or did they mention anything about addiction in the family at all?
No. Yeah, not one bit. I mean, I definitely had people in my family that I guess, like, I knew drank too much, like grandpas or whatnot. But even my dad, like, I don't remember him telling me, like, pieces of his story until later. So, no.
Yeah, it seems kind of like a trend with people is that the kids will, like, see and notice addictive behaviors or drinking or, like you said, hangovers, but that the parents, for some reason, brush most things under the rug or just don't talk about it. Just curious part of our culture to me, because I think that if we talked in an age-appropriate manner with our kids about what addiction is, how it can run in a family, and stuff like that. I mean, I know you said your dad might not have considered himself addicted, but if he binge drank and had to quit, like, there's still something going on there. I find it curious, and I wish we were able to talk to our kids about it in a way that would help them make informed decisions later in life. I'm interested, when you had the first drinking experiences in high school and it automatically went to binge drinking, do you remember what that felt like after the first drink, that just kind of slippery slope or the thirst for more? Like, do you remember where the binge drinking came from?
So first time I'd had like a few, like I'd had like a shot in Mexico with my grandma, so I don't really count that as like, I guess it would be the first time I drank. But
the first time you drank was with your grandma?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, tell me about that.
It was like a tequila tasting in Mexico.
Oh my gosh.
But like, I don't know if it was just like really light amounts or what. I remember feeling like maybe a little happier, but that was pretty much it. I didn't feel anything too strongly.
But then at the parties in high school?
So, and then in the little gatherings.
The little gatherings.
I mean, the first time I drank, I had no clue what I was doing. It was like, the fact that I was doing it is so dangerous.
What do you mean?
Just like because of how little I knew. Like, I didn't know how many was gonna get me drunk. I didn't know like how many was gonna I didn't know it made you make bad decisions. Like, and I made bad decisions. Mm-hmm. Like the first time I drank, I was with people that had drank a lot more than me, and I don't want to say they were like plying me with alcohol, but it was like they were very much like giving it to me. And I didn't know how much to ask for, how much to say no to. So it was like, here's a drink. Okay, I'll drink it. Like every other beverage in life. And yeah.
So what happened when things got out of control? What were the consequences?
Really no consequences. I didn't have consequences for a minute.
You said you're making bad decisions, though?
I was making bad decisions.
Those are consequences.
I guess internally. But at that time, I was just so, like, not... I was all over the place, I feel like. I mean, I was fighting with my parents a lot. Like, I was in a very much, like, classic rebellion stage. And was just kind of doing whatever I wanted and not thinking about the consequences. So I guess that's why I think there's no consequences.
That makes sense. So you're drinking at the small gatherings, making decisions that maybe you wouldn't like. How did things progress from there?
So from there, like more drinking with friends. From there, it became like a more like friend thing, and that continued into college. yeah, I mean, we moved into a dorm, me and my friend, and then a couple other friends lived in a dorm, 5-minute walk away. And it was very much just like, okay, we're just going to drink at any free moment we have, and a lot at that. I'd also started vaping around, I think I drank one time without vaping. So those two got like super wrapped up in each other. And obviously like the dopamine that you get from drinking I would hit the vape and I would just like the dopamine would just go crazy every time. So it was like a terrible setup because I'm like adjusting my body to these super high levels of dopamine and essentially like chasing that high dopamine level that you like can't get back after 2 drinks or whatever. But I was chasing that multiple times. So
did you have an awareness of it at the time? Like, I'm chasing something I can't get to, or how did it all feel like when you're fresh, new into college, no parents and just whiling out?
Well, that part I certainly felt free. I did not know that I was chasing. No. I mean, I thought I was getting there over and over again because, I would drink, hit the vape, and then, get buzzed, and then do it again and again and again. So it did feel like I was getting that same level of a dopamine hit at that moment. Yeah.
How did it feel during that time? You were enjoying yourself. It felt like fun, young, normal college life. Were there any negative repercussions at that time?
I was hungover, of course.
Did you connect the hangovers to that time when you saw your mom hungover?
Not that I remember. Not directly. Of course, that was only like one time where I noticed she was hungover.
Yeah.
I didn't get hangovers for a minute, actually. Like, yeah, it was very, like, I could drink a lot and then feel fine the next day.
And then when did you start getting hangovers?
Probably a year or 2 in, maybe. I don't know, maybe 19. Yeah. Yeah, that certainly made me feel it. It's when you're able to drink and not feel any physical repercussions, that's a hard point.
Totally, yeah. And you're just getting the dopamine on dopamine on dopamine and vaping and drinking and nothing bad's happening. It's kind of just, you're going to get a little bit stuck. You said you were drinking with the dorm mates. Is that a word? Dorm mate?
Can be.
With your dorm mates at any free moment. So was that like just at night after classes were over? Or was it like between classes or in the mornings or anything like that?
So I would say like welcome week, it was pretty frequent. Like kind of whenever we wanted to. But outside of that, I would say like mainly weekends, but like we weren't drinking and then going and doing things like going to class. But then like as I say that, there were a few times where like, oh, there's a career fair, let's pregame it. What? So like small things like that, but I wasn't like drinking a ton for those events. But yeah, pretty consistent. Also, it was a dry county. So like when you're looking at, the counselor in me says the alcohol use disorder, like looking at those symptoms, like spending time, and going out of your way and spending like a significant amount of time to like acquire materials for whatever your substance is. Then, yeah, we were driving an hour and then an hour back to go get it, from whoever we hit up to get some for us.
Oh, yeah, because you're still underage. So you weren't at the university here in Fayetteville. Where were you going to school then if it was a dry county?
UCA in Conway.
Conway.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So when did things kind of ramp up? You said you started having hangovers after about a year, and now, like, in reflection, you see the amount of, like, time and energy you were giving to leaving a dry county to go get your drug of choice, which is alcohol at the time. When did things get to a point where you're, like, having negative repercussions and you're like, hey, kind of questioning your choices?
Mm-hmm. I don't think I questioned for a really long time that it was alcohol. I think I thought it was like a moral failing.
What do you mean by that?
Like that I wasn't a good enough person to make good decisions while drinking. So my friend left the university after a semester, and I didn't have friends, so I would go out a lot and like, you know, drink enough to like not remember. And I just felt like any like bad decision I made, then that was because I wasn't good enough. And that kind of led me down a kind of self-help path, ironically. Like learning how to love myself and grow and like figure out my values. And then, of course, then I was just really incongruent at that point.
Yeah. So you would drink until you were blacked out, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen to everyone. I've learned over the years. I blacked out, like, at the end, I blacked out, like, every single time I drank. But, yeah, I guess that only happens to a certain percentage of the population. So you were drinking until you're blacking out, making decisions that weren't in line with your morals, and then instead of blaming the alcohol for the bad choices, you just felt ashamed. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that lead to you getting into self-help? Was that like pretty immediate? Like, how did you make it the discovery and the change there? Like, what happened?
I know I read a book.
You can read?
Barely. I read a book called You're a Badass, which sounds so corny. But I don't know, like, how I came across it. But that book just, like, really, like, marked this sort of, like, awakening. And I was looking back in my journals for this, and it's, like, the time when I started actually, like, legitimately questioning my alcohol use was, like, around this time of, like, almost, this awakening of, like, a personal freedom that I have. And I think that book really empowered that. I mean, every chapter ended with, like, something about, like, you're a badass, like, love yourself. And that was just the first time where I thought of that as an option, I guess. Like, I definitely had a lot of negative self-talk my whole life and not even been aware that I'd been talking to myself negatively. So I think that book, like, offered the opposite of, like, you can talk to yourself really well. Yeah. And then I think from there it was just, like, little bits of awareness of, like, I would wake up in the morning and feel really anxious. Like, journaling, like, I don't know if I can, like, keep doing this. Like, I don't know if alcohol is the problem. Or it was very much, like, me being anxious, where I was at as, like, developing my morals and alcohol were all just, like, super intertwined. Also, like, relationship issues. Like, I was dating someone at the time. And, yeah, probably him mixed up in that as well, of, like, anxiety about that relationship.
Did your partner drink as well? Did you drink together? Do you know if it was, like, an issue in that respect?
So we did drink together. So we moved in pretty young together. And then, he would drink a lot less than me. Like, his body my body could always handle it very well. I'd like to say.
Perhaps you had developed a bit of tolerance.
Yeah, yes. Right. And now that I look back, yes. But like, yeah, my body was very tolerated to it. I guess I say that because like his stomach would start hurting very easily, whereas I could drink like 3 times the amount of as he could and be fine.
Yeah. So maybe for him, like the physical symptoms prevented him from getting quite as drunk or drinking quite as much.
Yeah.
The intelligence of the body, I'm telling you.
I know. I wish I'd listened.
So was the drinking, did that have an effect on y'all's relationship?
Yes, it definitely did. Well, one, I had these rules. And these rules were do not drink when you are emotional and do not drink when you're alone. Since we moved in together young, I was never alone. So that rule was basically pointless.
Pretty easy to follow if you're never alone. Yeah.
Exactly. Which I did not realize until kind of this moment.
What was the other one? Don't drink when you're super emotional.
Don't drink when you're emotional.
Were you able to stick to that one?
In the moment, I thought I was, yes, doing that. Now reflecting back on it, then I think I was just, if I was feeling emotional, I would force myself to either stuff it down or emotionally process it really quickly so that I could drink. I mean, no, it was just not followed at all. Like, I would drink and then I would like want to have emotional conversations, which he didn't think was a good idea. It was just a lot of, we had poor communication skills at the time. And also, you throw alcohol in the mix and it just gets even worse.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, the rule of not drinking when you're super emotional. Like, how did you come to that sort of clarity? Did you have other times when you drank when you were emotional and shit hit the fan? Or how did that rule come about?
It had like always been a rule since like probably since I like got out of the house and started drinking. I think I just had this like awareness of like how it can numb, and I didn't want that for myself. Also, this is probably relevant, I guess. I originally started college off undetermined or whatever you call it. But then I became an addiction studies major, and I don't really know how I just landed in that. It just like felt right. And then eventually, I think because of like knowing people that were that have struggled with addiction, and also like I wasn't able to quit vaping, and like looking back, there was probably some like cognitive dissonance with like my own alcohol use. Then I switched to psychology with an addiction studies minor. So I think like some of this awareness came from classes, like knowing that like people use alcohol to numb.
That makes sense. It's very interesting to me that you're experiencing your own bit of addiction as an addiction studies major. I find that very interesting. Would you take a moment, Miss Addiction Studies major, and let our audience know what cognitive dissonance is? Because that was something, when I learned what that was, I was like, oh my God, like light bulb moment. I'm not crazy.
So basically, like, your behaviors and your thoughts aren't lining up, or some variation of that. So if I'm, going to school and learning about how addiction's bad for you or substance use is bad for you, I don't know. Whatever, both aren't great. And then I'm going home and drinking in excess, then I'm experiencing some cognitive dissonance. Like, to me, it feels like some uncomfortability in my chest of like, oh, I know that what I'm doing is not what's best for me, but I'm still doing it.
Yes. Yeah. I used to think I was crazy because some part of my thoughts would be like, I know my addiction is hurting me and the people around me, and I hate it, and I want to quit so bad, yet another part of me is still wanting to drink every day. And that fight inside of my brain, I was like, I'm just a crazy person. Like, I'm broken, I'm bad, and I'm crazy. And then I literally learned the definition of cognitive dissonance, and that it's like a normal part of human psychology to have different conflicting parts in our brains at times. And I was like, there's a word for that? Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, I'm not just a broken person. So yeah, I think it's just important to be able to honor that is a very common struggle. And it's also really interesting that you had that self-awareness of not wanting to drink when you're super emotional, because I feel like it's extremely common for people who have used substances as a coping mechanism to immediately, upon any uncomfortable emotion, want to just suppress it with alcohol. Mm-hmm. So that clarity early on is really interesting to me. Mm-hmm. So how did that process go for you of being in college and learning about psychology, learning about addiction, having that cognitive dissonance, creating rules for yourself? How did that process go, and how did you work through it?
I don't even know how much I think the cognitive dissonance was I wasn't aware a ton of it at the time, because I graduated in May 2021, and I didn't start really questioning things until, let's check my notes.
Let's check the notes for the timeline here.
I knew I'd be like, wait, when?
Y'all, Kailey is one of the most organized, note-taking, list-having people that I know. So it's very in character to see her right now with, several lined pages of notes about her life.
Hey, judged.
Not judged. It's a very wonderful characteristic about you.
Thank you.
Very organized.
Yeah. So I graduated in May 2021, and I was really starting to question it in March 2021. So right before I graduated. I don't think I connected my own use a ton with the things I was learning in school. I don't think that there was a huge focus on alcohol specifically. There was classes about the different types of drugs, or of course it was a minor, so not a ton on that, but a lot of them would be more drug focused, I think. Not a lot of relatable stories in that program, so I don't think I connected it. Also, it was very connected to lower socioeconomic level. Their stories were being told more. I don't even know if I would say their stories, but people were telling stories about them, and not, middle-class white ladies like myself.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there's this idea that the addict is the homeless person under the bridge with a brown paper bag and a needle sticking out of their arm, or whatever, the meth head squatting in a shack somewhere or something. And it's just bringing to light the fact that there's a massive spectrum of difficult relationships with substances, and that you don't have to be homeless under a bridge to be able to address difficult situations in your life. And I think your story is a really good example of that, because although you're having some negative repercussions, it could be really easy to be well, my life is not falling apart, I'm a college graduate and blah blah blah, so I'm really appreciative that you're here telling your story, because I think a lot of people are in that place where they have negative repercussions, they are questioning it, but since society tells them you don't have to address this problem until you're living under a bridge, I just think that that's not helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not.
So what happened after you graduated college? Did you still just like have some rules in place, or how were you addressing and dealing with the alcohol and vaping then?
Yeah, so my rules, of course, were at the back of my mind. But yeah, I would say a lot of arguments with my partner at the time, at home when drinking, if I would bring stuff up. There was this balance of like expressing emotional needs and like, I don't know what I want to say about that.
Yeah, but like your partner may be trying to have a boundary of not wanting to have the discussion about your emotional needs when you're intoxicated. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, but then I think in general, me just feeling not emotionally expressed. And then, of course, alcohol gave me that freedom to talk about whatever. And so I'd say like regular use continued. It was kind of like this back and forth of like periods of time where I was drinking a lot or drinking less. And like just always, like I remember every month in my journal would be like, my goal was to drink less. And then it would be like the next month would be like, I drank a lot this month. Like it was very much like push and pull of like trying to cut back, but like I don't think I could say no very well. So I think my ex like would offer it as a thing that we could do, but when I was doing it, it was a lot different than when he was doing it. So like, you know, he could have a few drinks and go to bed. I would, you know, black out and or pass out or whatever. So saying yes meant a lot more and did a lot more negativity to me, I guess.
So you had a self-awareness kind of for a long time that it wasn't working for you, and reflecting on your journals, you're like, oh, wow, like every month I wanted to drink less, but I couldn't. Was there some point where you decided you wanted to stop altogether? Like was there a breaking point? Was there like a rock bottom kind of thing, or how did things go after that?
So at some point I drew out like a whole web of all the negative things that alcohol had affected me, or how it had affected me. So I think that was definitely a big part of the process of realizing it. And then I went out on Dixon. I didn't live here yet, but I traveled in to go out for Halloween, and I'd had a panic attack while I was out, and I think that was the breaking point. I was just like reacting. This is what I hold on in my notes. This is what I said. A vessel of unhealed trauma, anger, and pain, and could only react out of those hurt places.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that pretty much perfectly encapsulates what I'd kind of allowed to happen at that point. And I wouldn't say that was regular, but it was just like I had no control over what I was saying. And I don't think I was like excessively cruel, but I don't know. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Dang. So all of this kind of makes sense to me. You were talking about like suppressing your emotions, stuffing them down in order to be able to follow this rule of being able to drink without being emotional, then kind of only being able to open up and be emotional after you had drank. And then at some point, like all those stuffed down emotions, like y'all, when we stuff down or avoid or suppress emotions, it doesn't make them go away. It makes them get stuck inside of us. And then it sounds like having a panic attack was your body being like, all of these emotions, we're full. We've stuffed out enough, and they're coming out now. Is that kind of your view of that panic attack as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So you have the panic attack. You're on Dixon Street on Halloween, presumably intoxicated.
Correct.
And that was kind of your like light bulb moment. What happened after that?
So in the days following that, then I talked to my dad and I was like, this is seeming like an issue. Like it's consistently causing some like arguments and poor decision making in my life, and like I don't know what to do. And that was hard to bring up. I hadn't talked about drinking with my dad before, so it was kind of like admitting that it was an issue. And from there, I decided to do 30 days, and I said maybe 50.
Mm-hmm. How'd the 30 days go?
The 30 days were good. I like challenged myself a lot during those 30 days to like go out some, to try to get accustomed to like going out and socializing without alcohol. I drank a lot of kombucha. That like Sting gave me somewhat of the like the craving that I wanted. And I mean, I think that was a good time. Like I felt like my brain was like expanding a lot. And I eventually went 90 days.
Ooh, maybe 50, but we got to 90.
Yeah.
What coping skills did you use during that time? Like when you're exposed to someone offering you a drink or you have a craving or something? You mentioned the kombucha and still going out and socializing, but I'm sure you encountered some hairy, sticky situations.
Mm-hmm. So the kombucha helps so much. I drank so much kombucha. Like I remember I would like I didn't carry a purse to bars, but like I would just like stuff a bottle of kombucha in my shirt or whatever so that I could bring it in and have something that I knew I could depend on that would help me. And I did a lot of journaling and a lot of, I think I was like working out more. Walks helped a lot, and like calling my friend helped a lot.
Yeah, that's all really helpful stuff. And I feel like things that people mention a bit, like walking and exercising, just kind of like trying to move through that energy, and the kombucha of having something else to drink besides beer or whatever. And yeah, calling someone and talking to someone is also a really great idea because thoughts come up and it's kind of just good to get them out there, especially with someone that we trust. Mm-hmm. What would you say when someone was like, you're at a bar, you know what I mean? If they were like, Kailey, what do you want to drink? You know, what would you say?
Either like, probably just like a soda or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I mean, I did typically always carry my kombucha and just say, I'm at kombucha.
I got kombucha. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have a plan for those situations of pivotal moments where, yeah, what do you want to drink?
Yeah. There was also, like, of course, the, like, oh, you know, like, they're bummed that I'm not drinking. That was annoying, I remember, but whatever.
Yeah. I like to say that's more of a reflection of their internal landscape than it is of, like, your value as someone who's not drinking. Mm-hmm. So what happened after the 90 days was over?
So 90 days, I decided to break it because I felt good about it. Mm-hmm. And, well, I think that triggered a period of feeling very depressed, not connecting that at the time.
Drinking again led to feeling depressed? Yeah.
Yeah, like probably like the lowest I'd ever felt.
Did you go back to binge drinking and blacking out immediately, or what was drinking again like after 90 days?
So it was more moderated, but I mean, still, I mean, like I said, my baseline was super high. So, I mean, if I was drinking like 6, then that was still fine, or whatever. Yeah, I think it went back to, I wasn't blacking out as much. and I think that those 90 days were really pivotal for me in stopping the emotional expression issue as much. I think I learned to express myself more and like know when to bring stuff up. And so I really like contribute the 90 days to like that emotional issue. It really worked on that.
So that makes a lot of sense too, just like having some healing experience, being able to change your perspective on things, and learning to not stuff the emotions down and be able to like find more healthier ways to express it. So you're drinking again, not quite as much, but you're super depressed. What happened after that?
So broke that in timeline wise. The time is so essential to me for some reason. I mean, regular use, yeah. And then,
like, did you ever get to a point where you quit for good? Or I'm pretty sure I see you having like a drink like once in a while. Like, where are you at now with it?
Okay, so I went 15 months at one point.
15 months with no alcohol at all?
Mm-hmm. So I think like self-harm stuff got kind of bad around the depression time. And so I was getting a lot of like like hopeless burden, higher desire. Hold on. Running out of, my throat's getting dry. I was getting a lot of like desire-filled thoughts to harm myself and very intense, like moral kind of judgments on myself around then. And so I think that was a big, that was a big breaking point, was if I'm drinking and having these thoughts, then like I'm risking my life at this point. Because if I'm blacking out, who knows what you could do.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big thing. And kind of around that time, then I was like, okay, like I'll do dry January. Like I had a work party on January 9th. So I did dry January except for that. And a relatable experience.
Yes.
For a lot of
people.
And so I just drank on that one day and then was like, okay, I'll complete the month. And then I just kept on going. I just realized how much of it was an issue for me. One really big moment was like I was walking and on the phone with my friend for a period of that walk, I think. But part of that was alone. And I guess this was when I was hungover, so before I stopped drinking. But I was like, I am so anxious every day. Like, I just cannot live like this. It's awful. And it was that at that moment where I was like, well, drinking gives me anxiety and I'm choosing to drink. So essentially I'm choosing this anxiety.
Ding, 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 ding.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm like really running out of juice.
Yeah.
Yes. So ding, ding, ding. Indeed.
We have a winner.
Yeah. So that was the biggest thing. Like the anxiety really opened up the personal choice in it for me. And how I was subjecting myself to the daily pain, essentially. And so I think that kept me going for a while. Like, I did not want to be anxious anymore. Like, I'd been anxious for so long. And, I mean, I don't know. I just never, like, I just didn't do it for a while. And, like, I was seeing all the ways in which my life was improving. And,
how was it improving? This is during the 15 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was it improving then?
I mean, I think I was able to make friends that were like quality friendships for the first time since like high school, like new friends. It was like everything that I like wanted out of my life was like, it started to be able to happen. Like I was, at my new counselor program and everything was going great. And my finances got better. And even like my personal sense of style, like I felt very like, I don't know, like I just wore whatever before. But from then on, it felt like very intentional and like I felt like good in my body and I was like able to work out consistently. The vaping still, the vaping was my one downfall. I couldn't get that to fix, but
yeah. First off, I want to ask, how did your anxiety level change when you quit drinking for 15 months?
It went so much lower than before. I think I definitely have like an anxious attachment. So I think that's a normal feeling for me to be anxious. But it was like waking up first thing in the morning, like, oh, what if everyone's mad at me? What if I don't know. Like, I don't know. It was just constant, like from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, I was worried about something.
Yeah.
Versus when I quit, I mean, that all really faded away. I mean, like, I noticed, like, behaviorally, I was asking people, like, are you mad at me? Like, less to not at all. And, of course, like, you're in control of your actions. I think, like, the daily anxiety of, like, not doing all the things that you want to do in your life. Like, fitness is, like, an important, like, value of mine. And I think it's fun and, like, good for you to work out and to move your body. But I think if you're not doing the things that you know you should be doing, back to cognitive dissonance, then you feel like a sort of underlying anxiety of like I'm wasting my potential almost, and wasting my like ability to live life. And so that faded away a lot because I was able to actually do the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah. And it's like anxiety is a normal human emotion. Like we all go through it. It's uncomfortable and it sucks. But yeah, I feel you. Like when we're drinking, it's like the anxiety is just like obscene and intolerable and it compounds in itself. And there's like a million more reasons to feel just like outstandingly anxious. Yeah, my anxiety went down like 95% when I quit drinking. And now I have some like normal human amount of anxiety because it's a human emotion. I think a lot of people also struggle with vaping. It's this weird form. I'm a millennial. It's this weird form of smoking where it's like back when people mostly smoked like stinky tobacco, like you couldn't smoke it indoors. You couldn't, like hit it just once whenever you want. There's like these limitations to smoking cigarettes, but now it's like vaping. It's just like people, they smoke inside. You can just take one hit, puff it, and just walk off and do whatever else. And it's just like that and like the Zins, the little nicotine pouches, it kind of just makes like unlimited nicotine available to people in this way that, I see a lot of people really, really struggling with vaping and the little Zin pouches. So yeah, would you mind talking a little bit about your experience with that? And I remember you showing me your phone recently saying that maybe you'd been like 90 days off of the vaping. So let us know about how that experience was for you.
Yeah. So vaping and drinking, that like quitting was always like super wrapped up. So I think when I would quit vaping, I would also quit drinking. And so then maybe I would if I got back on the vape, then I would start drinking again. So very wrapped up. That was hard. I just, honestly, I love nicotine and still do, despite the 94 days or whatever I'm on. I hopefully will never do it again, but it's just a very, like, off and on for years. Like, probably tried to quit for 4 out of the, probably 5.5 out of the 6 years I was, like, not wanting to be doing it, but I was doing it. And, it's just trial and error. I mean, just one day you're just going to have to do it. And
how do you survive the cravings for nicotine now?
So I've definitely done patches at some points, but I didn't do patches in these 90 days. I mean, I don't know, breathing, I don't know, any stupid little things.
It's not stupid.
I know. I just no, I'm not saying breathing is stupid.
Breathing is very important.
Yes, breathing is very important. I think nicotine is just so hard to quit. And so, you can give all these, tips and tricks, but it's just, you have to decide that one day you're not going to do it anymore. And it really is, it's a day, take one day at a time. It's just a hard thing to quit for anyone that I've talked to.
Yeah. Something that I like to do if I have a craving for something is tell myself, this is an uncomfortable sensation that I will survive. And that is a pretty good thing for me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm uncomfortable and I'm going to live. It's going to be okay. So do you drink moderately now?
So probably a drink a month at this point, roughly. It kind of goes up and down. I've definitely had instances where I've gone out and drank too much, but never to that same blackout level that I have. But I've been at hangover level sometimes. And it's kind of always in this back and forth push and pull of cutting back. It just feels like I'm cutting back little by little, consistently since that 15 months broke. So
is abstinence your ultimate goal or is moderation your ultimate goal?
Moderation, I don't know. I've honestly been considering if abstinence is my ultimate goal. I got into this feeling like I wanted it to be moderation, but it might have to be abstinence. And now I've been in this place of I wouldn't mind if it was moderation, but it just feels so bad to me. I had a drink the other day at an event, and it was just the people around me I loved very much, but I felt so disconnected from them because of the drink. And it did make me question maybe I just shouldn't do it at all. Because, I don't know. I mean, I've always been what's the point if it's one drink? And so maybe abstinence? I don't know. I'm kind of open at this point. Sometimes I can definitely drink and not feel uncomfortable, but sometimes it's just rough. So we'll see.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
All right. We're getting near the end of our time. I'm interested if you would tell the listeners if there's something you think people don't understand about addiction.
I think it's more of a spectrum than people think of it as. A lot of people, I think of it as either you're addicted or you're not. And I think that can be a barrier to getting help. I remember there were points where I was should I go to an AA meeting? Well, they would make me say I'm an addict, but I don't think I am right now. but alcohol is definitely causing issues in my life. So I guess I'm just not going to go to a meeting.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. Like the people poring over the concept of, am I an alcoholic? I feel like that's just sort of like a not helpful concept. Like maybe it's more helpful to be like, is my substance use hurting myself? Or like, would my life be better if I didn't drink or use substances? Maybe. Mm-hmm. And if people were able to ask themselves that more instead of being like, am I addicted enough? You know, like, I don't think that that's necessarily the most helpful question.
Mm-hmm. I think even like thinking about like the ways in which it's the ways in which it's affecting your life and trying to cut those back, even without even looking at the alcohol specifically, would be helpful. Like, oh, it's affecting my relationships in this way. Let me try to adjust some behavior, granted that may be very entwined with alcohol. Like, oh, instead of talking about emotional issues while you're drinking, like maybe let's have an emotional check-in, like sober once a week on Sundays, whatever. Mm-hmm. Then it's all just kind of more of a system and less black and white than like I think a lot of people think, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then lastly, if you could talk to someone who's deep in the shit, who maybe, you know, had a panic attack at Dixon Street last night or something, what would you tell them?
That you're loved and that you're a good person. And even though this part of your life is really hard, that, you know, it can get better. And yeah.
I agree. Yes. All right. Thanks for joining us today, Kailey. I appreciate your time so much.
Thanks for having me on. Bye. Bye.
Recovery Demystified is produced and edited by me, Early Brunner. Stevie Petet made our logo. Our social media manager is Kailey Bausch. Logan Bragg wrote our beautiful theme music. We are entirely supported by donations as a 501c3 nonprofit. Your tax-deductible donations can be made to our Venmo or to our PayPal at Recovery Demystified. May you be happy and free, dear listener.